Welcome to the WG podcast. We're here on our newly rebranded
WG.
WG.
There you go. That's the voice I like, Jason.
You like that?
Yeah.
Like a little choir boy. I was in the choir, but we're not a musical act. We are a real estate and all things Atlanta podcast that'll throw in a tune every once in a while.
Indeed.
Because we're multifaceted. And here with my studious and extemporaneously knowledgeable colleague, Lee Taylor, real estate expert Lee Taylor. I am Jason Wieloch, also a real estate expert, in case you wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Indeed.
we're back coming to you live in our North Atlanta studios as part of the Wieloch Group at Compass. And we're just having a good old time here in the middle of COVID.
Yeah. COVIDaciousness.
COVIDacious. I don't know. That's
something I came up with. I put it on a blog post back in March.
Really?
Mm-hmm. COVIDacious.
Well, it certainly describes where we're at, folks. But in spite of that, the real estate market is chugging on, and we are on a sugar high, which is really what we're here to talk about today.
Yep.
We'll talk about Atlanta's housing boom, its recent housing boom. And in the meantime, before we get to that meaty topic about your great city or the city you're strongly considering moving to, what the WG is up with you?
Well, Jason, there's no greater story to tell than Lee Taylor's story of the week, which involves a 3-day contract to closing process. On Friday, a backup offer became a real binding contract. On the day a deal fell apart with another buyer, they were supposed to close. It was a $710,000 house. And when the agent called and said, Lee, does your client still want to buy this? I said, yeah, absolutely. We're about to write an offer on another property. Your timing is impeccable. We had earnest money in by the next day. The following day, Sunday, we didn't have a lot to do. Monday, we got commission agreements done. We put everything in alignment with the closing attorney, and we closed yesterday with cash from the proceeds of a sale on Monday. Cash deal. Title was done. Title insurance was done. Attorney was ready. Everybody was disappointed the deal fell apart on Friday, and everybody was super happy that our client, stepped in, swooped in, and in 3 days bought a house for $710,000.
That's got to be a record.
I think it's a record. I don't know of anybody else, and everybody else from the attorney to us has not said they've never heard anything like that.
I mean, if there's a record book for fastest real estate closing, it would be somewhere in there.
It takes a buyer who knows what they're doing and clearly understands the value of what they're buying, and he did.
It speaks to how much of a seller's market it is that a buyer is willing to make that kind of leap to get it done fast and not even consider the idea that it could go to somebody else. Like, let's get this done here.
Right.
And now I already seen the inspection from the other buyer. I'm cool that I've been in the house.
Right.
I'm great. I wasn't even expecting to have a new house on Tuesday, but hell, I'm going to go close.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally the kind of mentality you had to have to pull something like this off. It is such a $700,000 decision in a split second.
Right. And we knew enough to realize that he felt a longing for the house sitting when he missed it. So from there, long story. However, it's about preparation and mindset. So when you meet a client, you go, hey, what's been your experience with purchasing real estate? And you ask that question to a purchaser or a seller, what's been your experience? I know this guy was ready. I knew it. And I knew that this was one of those things where it was a blessing from above. There was no other way that this would have happened if the timing was just divine.
Well, let's cover a few. Well, and I'll tell you, since you didn't ask about my week, but I guess I could tell you.
How's your week, JW?
I will tell you what, I had a couple listing appointments pop out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited about
That's good. You needed that.
I needed it. Everyone's running short on inventory right now. And, our team's a little bit competitive out there, folks. This isn't quite selling Sunset. We might as well have a show called Selling Peach State. That'd be
That's not a bad idea.
That would be quite the story. We're not going to wear heels, at least Lee and I won't. But and we're not going to maybe be quite as glamorous as these LA realtor. Have you seen Selling Sunset?
I don't watch any of these shows.
I've seen a couple episodes. In general, I'm not interested in real estate reality because it is my reality. It's your reality. But that being said, I'm excited to be competitive and there's healthy competition within great real estate teams.
Yeah, there is.
And so when I see you lighten up the board with all these upcoming listings, I'm like, man, I feel a little bit left out.
That's what Lee Taylor's going to do to you, boy.
I had to go out there and get those. And we've been really hot at our townhome communities in Buckhead, folks.
Thank goodness.
If you love some beautiful luxurious townhomes, come see Creekview at Lenox and the row homes at Phipps. Google both of those. You'll find addresses and locations. And so we've had a lot of traffic there. And man, we're just selling so many properties so fast as a group. And so I'm just excited about that. And so that's my week, is just really enjoying this business in the midst of what you would call a COVID-acious environment, because I don't know what we would do if we didn't have our work.
Yeah,
it would be
no kidding.
A listless existence, right? So it keeps
literally, Jason.
It really does. It keeps
literally listless.
It keeps the positivity high when you're busy. But let's do a little Atlanta.
Speaking of high, sugar high.
Well, no, I want to give some Atlanta news.
Okay, give me Atlanta sugar high.
I want to give you. I'll give you a little high on COVID.
Tell me. I want to hear this. This is good stats, Jason gets.
I'm going to give you some positive news on COVID. No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, I want to hear. Jason has contrarian media information that that is contrary to a lot of the media stuff.
This information that I'm giving you is not contrary.
It's medical.
These are just hard numbers.
Facts.
So hospitalizations for COVID in Georgia as of real time today are a little over 1,900, down from our high about a month ago of around 3,300. That's not that isn't subjective news.
No, it's
that's just real concrete medical data. And that's in just week over week, by the way, the last 7 days, 15% down. And we're starting to see double-digit reductions percentage-wise in hospitalizations in Georgia every week. And I have great data that I have from a doctor at my university, and he puts it out every day. And every single state that he lists, he basically lists all the states that are hotbeds and does publish daily numbers. Everybody's down double digits in hospitalizations, and it is rapidly declining very fast. What does that mean for the long term? Will it come back or spike? That's the thing that I don't care what experts there are out there. Nobody really knows. Nobody, even the experts, have changed their outlooks on things the last couple months, right? At times. But what we know is the numbers are going down really fast. And you know what? That means we're going to be hopefully in a little less COVID-acious world by Christmas.
Well, COVID-aciousness, the beginnings of it begin when people eat bat-infested pangolins. So hopefully that has been reduced in certain parts of the world.
I'm certainly not going to be adding that to my diet.
Yeah, bat-poisoned pangolins. Look at that up.
Just sounds gross.
If y'all are not knowledgeable.
Why do you even like this? You should remove it just because it doesn't sound tasty.
Yucky.
So that's the news. And then in other positive news, Tyler Perry became a billionaire. So
that's
Atlanta
amazing.
has another billionaire.
Yeah, that's so cool. He deserves it. He's a really remarkable leader in his field who has employed so many people in this city. He's a good dude.
I don't know him.
I don't know him either, but I know what he's done for his city, and I know he stood true to himself and really came from nothing to make what he has. So congratulations to Tyler Perry. He's a really, really good dude.
He's kind of like a younger Spike Lee.
He's beyond Spike Lee. I think Spike Lee was way more of that director, that auteur. You know, when he came out, do you know what an auteur is there, Mr. Ole Miss?
I'm not quite familiar.
An artist who creates art from film.
Ole Miss. I have a great vocabulary.
Whereas Tyler Perry created with plays on, traveling plays that were funny, and he dressed up in drag, and he was a character that was funny, and then they made movies out of it. He had a really unique approach. It was basically just situational comedy.
And he, at one point, owned what was the most expensive sale of the time in Atlanta real estate a couple of years ago. I think it sold for $17 million. It's already changed hands. It's the house right where West Pace's Ferry meets the Chattahoochee as you're crossing to Vinings.
I love it.
Like it's right before, exactly. So Levitt's on the right. And you know that big house that overlooks the river there? That was his house at one point. It's crazy large. I think it's 20-something thousand square feet. And some mega church evangelical bought it, but then they ended up selling it within a couple of years. So
I read that.
Maybe they didn't have enough of the faithful.
Jason, they didn't have enough faith.
They didn't.
They just didn't.
Yeah, as in the checks stopped coming in. Right.
Man, if anybody has a chance that wants to, Jerry Falwell Jr. had a big old fall publicly this week. Did you read that, Jason? You know who Jerry Falwell Jr. is?
Yeah, he's the Liberty University, son of the founder of
Son of
Liberty
Jerry
University.
Falwell, but
Yeah.
Larry Flint, who was a publisher of Hustler magazine and a proponent of First Amendment rights, who was sued by and then won in the Supreme Court a lawsuit with Jerry Falwell Sr. back in the 80s, had a provocative article about the downfall of Jerry Falwell Jr. It was really well written. And it was written from a place of compassion. No matter what you think of Larry Flint, he has a really sound grip on what American ideals are, honestly, about free speech and free presentation of what, adults read or whatever. I'm not into that, but boy, did he skewer Falwell Jr. It was awesome.
I only heard about this, but I didn't read into it.
All right. Well, let's just say a prayer. Let's move on, Jason.
All right. So that's my Atlanta news.
Yes.
And I hope that things continue to get better in Atlanta and here on the WG. So let's talk about sugar highs.
And the Atlanta housing sugar high.
And boy, do I have a sweet tooth, Lee.
You do. I used to watch you eat ice cream sandwiches, and you have improved your diet so much.
I'm down 10% body fat in 1
year. I know.
Year.
That's remarkable. I was pushing to get to 14% by my birthday, and I don't think I'm going to get there at the rate I'm going.
I measured
close to 16.
I measured 16. I measured it at 16 yesterday. A year ago, I was
16.4 for me. That's dude. Yeah, you've really. That's a huge improvement. You're going to improve everything about your life with that kind of a reduction.
I already have. You just feel better, and I used to be leaner than I am today. And then I just went through a spell where I let that go, and I've recommitted.
Was that the fettuccine Alfredo?
I'm never going to let that happen again. And unfortunately, the kind of sugar high we're talking about with Atlanta real estate won't add pounds to me.
No,
because I'm getting more steps in these days, and all the realtors are, because we're running around.
No kidding.
So I think that's the grand debate today. We are on a sugar high for real estate. It is busting at the seam. There are willing, able, and motivated buyers all over the place, not enough sellers. So the question really surrounds, well, the topic is it's happening. It's here. So how do we analyze that? How are we going to forecast, right? And is this a bubble? Is it not? And that's really what a number of the articles you pulled spoke to. So give me some highlights, sir. Let's talk about this sugar high and what it means.
Well, bumper demand for housing is an indication that Americans are aiming to make up for lost time. Many economists believe that what we're seeing now is essentially a postponed spring buying season. The housing market is on a sugar high brought on by government stimulus. That would be low interest rates and other incentives for down payment assistance and other things, even building incentives. And a pandemic-fueled rush to low-density housing. Now, when we think of low density, we think of bigger houses with more space.
Suburbs, right? Generally.
Right. It could be. And it really just a lifestyle changes for people who want to be out of, say, apartments, condominiums, et cetera, and want more freedom with their space. So I think that is the bumper demand mainly. And it is government stimulus. Yeah, freedom. Government stimulus and a pandemic-fueled rush are two key obvious demand indicators that will never really let up until they let up. We don't have a foreseeable future to point to and go, when is this going to stop? Because interest rates should stay relatively low, meaning below 4.5%, 5% for a long time.
So the two drivers of this are the timing of a pandemic that pent up a spring market, and then that combined with interest rates. I think there's also some other dynamics at work here. Some, let's call them intangibles, my friend. For instance, it's easy to look at the market and say, oh, this is a bubble that's been created, right? Because of the frenzy. Maybe there is a little bit of a bubble. Maybe it's not quite as hot next year. But I will say this. I wonder if it's interest rates alone and the delay of the market alone. I theorize that people are so spatially aware because of what's happened. They've been literally,
you're right.
Home is where not only the heart is, but where you are 24/7.
Yeah.
And the more people are in their space, the more they're going to think about who we are in America. We're so on the go. Most of us do not spend a lot of waking hours at our property. We get up, we go. This is pre-COVID. We get up, we go, we run the rat race. Maybe we run home, unless you're a stay-at-home mom or something. But even then, you're like out your activities and taking kids all over the place. And so you end up in this space sort of in the evening generally, and, dinner, TV, whatever, games, family time, off to bed, and you're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping. So now we live in our
Mm-hmm.
homes all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
We live in we always have, but now we truly are. And I think that's one of the intangibles that's driving this market that has nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
rates or some sort of spring delay.
Working from
What do
home
you think?
versus living at work is one of the ways I heard somebody put it, some consultant. And that made a lot of sense because people are living at work and they're working longer hours. Maybe they're not working in some cases while they're trying to teach their kids. They have to take their time, but they're working longer hours than they normally would. But I think one other thing about our market and the sugar high is competition is driving faster sales and higher prices. That high of winning, that high of wanting it before somebody else gets it, it's hard to say that it's anything other than, that can fuel you. That can really be, I want that now. I've already made my mind up what I want and I'm going to get that. That drives prices up. And then is it a really good time to buy is really the underlying question for buyers. Is it a really good time to buy? And I think you know the answer, don't you, Jason?
I mean, part of that answer is it a good time to buy for you? If you're going to be happier by changing your space and it's going to improve your life, there's never a better time to move if it means happiness.
Yeah.
I will tell people all day long, the financial decision aside, if you're going to live somewhere, you better love it. It better serve a purpose, which is
Lifestyle choice.
it should improve your world, because a home, there is a component to it that is like you're grounded there. It's your territory, right? It becomes how you experience everything. And whether it's not only being there, but where the things are around you, access, whatever the case may be, I never would say stay put if you're not happy where you're at.
Right. Well, at the same time, I mean, kind of move on to the next piece of what this is. Is it a good time to buy? There's a pandemic imbalance in the housing market, and it's mostly benefiting sellers. Now, the disproportionate benefit to the buyer is a low interest rate for quite what possibly could be the most affordable price they could get, because interest rates enable that. They may have the same amount of down payment they had last year, but if interest rates are down and they're good and ready, they know the lifestyle choice they want to make. They know the neighborhood, the school district, the number of rooms, the basement they need. They know everything they need to where to park their car, and they're very, very comfortable. Then no matter what, if they're ready, the pandemic is getting this balance in favor of the seller, because that buyer is going to go beat another buyer out or learn the way to do it. Sometimes it takes 5 or 6 times and attempts, but that's the magic of this market for sellers is
if you're a seller, I mean, this is the best time ever.
And I think that's
but many of those sellers are also buyers. So the thing about selling is there's generally two sides of the fence, right?
Well, there's two sides to a lot of fences in this pandemic world with employment and unemployment. So I think that's the two sides of the fence I think about the most right now.
Okay, well,
people who aren't employed can't do a lot.
That's left field, but
I know. You think of two sides of the fence, that's what I thought of.
I think like two sides of the fence is if you're selling, you're probably buying, which means you're going to go through one transaction that's probably more painful than the other right now. And I'll tell you what, we've got a really great solution for that. And, this might sound like a plug, but you should tell your friends about it if you're listening and you're not in real estate mode, because a lot of people are staying put because they don't feel like they can find a place and they got to sell to buy, but they don't want to put a sign in their yard because they know they'll sell in 2 or 3 days and they're trapped in an Airbnb and all of that complicated stuff in this. So the bridge loan program that Compass has is such a remarkable product. It was really cool when it was launched, but it's more cool than ever because it can help a home buyer facilitate that purchase without selling, because they can feel really confident that once they get a new home under contract with that financing in place, they can list their house tomorrow, and they may not even have to take and use the bridge financing anyway if their house sells quickly.
Right.
But it saves them having to make a contingent offer, which in this market, if you're making a contingent offer, you might as well stay put, because there's no way that you're going to be able to compete in these multiple offer situations if it's contingent on your house selling.
And what's remarkable,
and that's what's keeping a lot of people put.
Yeah.
That's part of what the supply problem is that people have a challenge. Like they feel sort of trapped in a space that'll sell too quick, and there's nothing to buy.
And with the lowest level in 5 years of listings in Atlanta,
right,
and a 47% drop July to July over last year, 47% less listings for sale. Yet if you run the numbers, we're selling about the same amount of houses per month.
Because the absorption
is super fast.
Is super fast.
Speaking of super fast, I did one in 3 days, and that was a rarity, right? But they're happening in less than 30 days all over the city.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that it's just a weird time, and
it's weird, man.
These articles are great. I mean, they make so many great points. But I think overwhelmingly, what I'm seeing is that economists, not to get too technical, but they're not really considering this a bubble.
No, I think that's the best part is
they believe it's more natural.
No way is this a bubble. It's the two main drivers of housing remain rock solid, right?
And you know what? There's so much cash in the market. There's so many cash transactions happening.
Yeah.
That makes me comfortable with it being a natural market event. Because if people have the money to pay cash and they're not leveraging, it truly means there's healthy demand there.
Yeah.
They have the disposable money. People are putting so much money down on properties. It's not like I would be more concerned if it was a tight market and everyone was putting down 5%.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If everyone was doing that.
And then you're like really on the edge if the market corrects. But so many people are paying cash in all price ranges right now. They've been saving the last decade, people have made so much money in the American economy the last 5 to 10 years, and they have these assets.
Well, you know what the two key components in this article say? First, the rate of growth in no way compares to what we had during the bubble years of 2002 to 2005. And second, we don't have a consumer credit bubble in the housing market or in the general economy. You've talked about that over the years. We had an Equifax friend of yours who told you some stats earlier this year about some of the fundamentals. And our friend Derek, my client, mentioned some things about the fundamentals of consumer credit right now.
People's ratios of debt to income are really healthy. They're not maxing and they're not leveraging high amounts of money versus what they can, right?
Right.
I mean, people have consumer debt, but it's a pretty healthy level. It's not irresponsible amounts.
So if you're a purchaser right now and you are ready, and maybe your lease is coming up in October 1st and you're thinking it's time, what would your advice be to maybe a first-time buyer right now in this moment?
Well, if you have a parent that can help you pay cash and then you finance the loan the week after closing,
wow, yeah,
I would do that, because if you're easily bankable and you're in an entry-level price point, chances are it's extremely competitive, and you may be a guy that wants to put down a girl or who wants to put down 5-10% on their first home. They don't have tons of cash, and you can just go to mom and dad and say, hey, can I borrow, $300,000 or whatever that number is for the next 30 days because I just need to win an offer. And then we can go close the loan next week. It won't cost us any more or less. You just have to withdraw cash from me for a few weeks.
Well, this other component of the article,
I think that, don't you think that's and if people have brokerage accounts, a lot of people, I know, like my friend Jeff Hogan has a great program at Merrill Lynch where the parents can do the financing for the kid. It's like not a gift, but they can, with the kid, do the financing and gift the down payment or gift the money or the liquidity against their assets.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And they can do that now for their kids. So there's that's a great program too. If you are in that space, if you're a first-time home buyer and your parents have money at a major brokerage house, there are ways that they can use those assets without actually withdrawing and selling.
Right. I think it's still just a matter of we're pushing per capita income against home prices. At some point, per capita income is going to stall, and home prices are going to stall. We're not in that stall yet, That's the sugar high.
Atlanta loves its cake and its pie right now.
Right.
In the form of that fourth bedroom.
And I find, people who I know have lost their jobs recently.
Yeah.
Many of them have new jobs. That's the resilience of Atlanta. If you got talent and you got a great resume, we have a lot of jobs in the city that reward talented people.
1,000% people that have been laid off in most cases, unless you're in the service industry. But that aside, most people are able to find and be rehired pretty seamlessly. I mean, my buddy John Jennings, who runs a recruiting firm, they're on fire with orders for hires from employers.
Yeah.
Like there is hiring here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that excludes the service industry is just in a really tough spot. There's really no way around that until we can open our society up. But we're fortunate beyond that to be a really healthy job market.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the three things that we put together in this podcast, which was that we have a sugar high, pandemic conditions favor sellers, and there's no way this is a housing bubble. But I want to summarize what Jason said on August 9th when there were some questions that came up that I was relating to these matters going, Jason, we got to get real. Jason, it's going to bust. Well, it's not really. It's not a bubble. It's all about location is what Jason said. He said, even if we went to 6 months of inventory, and right now we have 2 months of inventory or less, 6 months is significantly more homes than we currently have. Jason says that would be welcome. And with that, it's true that most high-income workers, is what Jason said, will weather this than not. And that would be in Atlanta particularly. We have a very robust, healthy
Sounds
economy.
like a smart guy.
Right, it is. It's the repeated narrative of what Jason calls divergent markets. And it's also the same narrative of nobody really knows. So I love it when Jason uses that excuse. Nobody really knows. He's right.
We don't, or I'd be placing bets in Vegas on the future.
So we can only transact based on what is happening today. And what happened on Friday to me resulted in a transaction Tuesday. And I just had the reality in front of me. Here's what would have happened if my buyer didn't step in? They would have put it back on the market and sold it to somebody this week. Right?
Listen, at the end of the day, folks, if you want to live in this beautiful city, or if you want to make a move within this beautiful city, the decision to try and time the market will never work.
Nope.
I was in finance before this, and the one principle of finance that stuck with me forever was those who acted sooner statistically came out better.
First mover advantage.
And timing and waiting was like playing blackjack in Vegas.
It was like trying to catch a falling knife.
That's right, baby. A falling knife.
Jason, I know. That's
I'm going to get out of the way.
It's a little slicey.
Well, sir, this is a great topic.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it, and I'm kind of got a sweet tooth, so I may go have some of those ice cream sandwiches I've been hiding from you.
Man, I love ice cream sandwiches, and I did have one this week.
It's skinny cow though, so
that's not like ice cream sandwich. That's some sort of chemical concoction.
Whatever it is, it doesn't make me as fat. All right, well, listen, folks, we appreciate you letting us having a little more of a housing focus today. What we do every week, but we got a little bit deep into the details because I know a lot of you have been asking questions about what's going on in this crazy market. I had fun with it. I know Lee did. And next week, we're going to pivot and have somebody on from Pause Atlanta. Pause is
PAWS.
Yes, they are an organization that the Wieloch Group is sponsoring here in the coming 60 days. We're going to be working with them into October. And what it is with every closing that we have, whether it be buyer or seller between now and then, we're going to be giving proceeds, as well as anybody who likes our Facebook or Instagram page, we will give $1 for every like.
That's great.
To Pause as well. And so if you want to find us, we are the Wieloch Group on Facebook, WIELOCH, or at Wieloch Group on Instagram. And you can check us out and find all those links easily on our website, twgatlanta.com. That might be the easiest way to go and see all our social links, like away, and a Facebook and an Instagram like is $2. So don't hesitate. And at the end of the day, they're a great organization, dog shelter here in Atlanta, and they're helping to put pups with good homes. So we support them.
Dogs and cats.
I'm sorry. And they got some real cuties over there. So I might take you over there one day, Liam.
You could use a doggy.
I know. I know. I've
Well,
thought
I have
about it.
been over there. My daughter went to camp there, I think 4 weeks back, 3-4 years ago she did. And it's a wonderful place run by wonderful people. As a matter of fact, I have a past client. He used to be the director of operations. She sold a Decatur townhouse about 5 years ago. I know a lot about Paws. I'm looking forward to talking to the director. It'll be really,
Yeah, it's gonna be
really good group of animal rescue folks.
1,000% agree, and we look forward to getting their message out and awareness next
Sure.
week's episode. So if you love dogs and cats, call or tune in next week on the WG podcast. And until then, we'll see you later.
See you later.